The non-dom regime was scrapped earlier this year in April 2025. It's replaced with the new FIG regime, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard it was because of your uncle's wife that the non-dom scheme got scrapped, the old remittance basis. But yeah, no, big changes. And now people have probably heard of the foreign income and gains scheme, which has replaced the non-dom old existing regime.
Yeah. So I think there's, for me, the FIG regime, it does represent a restriction in terms of, how long individuals that come to the UK can sort of claim relief on their foreign income. But I think, from my perspective, there's maybe been a little bit of a kind of a negative feeling or a bit of negative press about the FIG regime, like it's quite penal, but it is restricted now to like 4 years, as we know. But I think there are opportunities for people that are kind of looking to plan strategically. The regime is live now, right? So as of April 2015, and I think one key difference for me is the fact that, under the old remittance basis rules, you couldn't bring any of your kind of overseas income to the UK. And that created like a lot of admin, a lot of challenge, managing bank accounts, making sure that you didn't accidentally transfer funds to the UK. Well, that's all gone now. And you can kind of earn foreign income whilst you're a resident in the UK. You can bring that into the UK. You don't have to kind of manage bank accounts. If you're working overseas and traveling, you can claim overseas Workday Relief still, like you could under the old regime. And again, all of that money can come to the UK. So I think there are certainly opportunities. One thing you were saying was, if you can bring that money to the UK, then it can be like invested into the UK, right? You can buy a house or whatever.
Exactly, and I think, to your point around like not all being so negative, I think the people who feel maybe a little bit hard done by, right, are the ones that have been here for a few years. So they've already kind of used up their 4 years. But I think even they've got that allowance, right, at 12%, etc., where they can bring in a large sum of money from overseas. So I think you can see what the government have tried to do. They've tried to say, okay, we want that money now spent in the UK. Because like you said, traditionally, because you couldn't bring it into the UK, what's the benefit? The only benefit to the UK is that they hopefully have high earners from overseas in. So I think it's great now to incentivize new foreigners to come in who will invest maybe into the markets, the property market, businesses, or at least spend their money in the country because they can bring it in. So we should see a lot more spend. And then, the ones that were living here, let's say for 5 years, 10 years, maybe close to being deemed domicile, or they've been here so long, they've established, that gives them an opportunity to bring all of that wealth from overseas into the UK. So it does work on from that perspective. Yeah.
And separately as well, it also includes UK nationals, right? It's not restricted to people who don't see their UK as their permanent home. It applies to everyone. So if you've been outside of the UK, if you were a Brit living in Dubai, in Australia, in Spain, etc. for 10 years, you can come back and still see the benefits of the FIG regime, which previously would have been restricted to people who've never been in the UK, not kind of British passport holders.
Yeah, it's a big change, and I think that's one that's gone under the radar a little bit. I think like that's really going to be really valuable to some people. Overall, I think it's really quite a fair. We talk a lot about the government and the changes that they should make or shouldn't have made, but I actually feel like on the whole, the FIG regime is relatively fair. One thing we haven't maybe mentioned, right, is the inheritance tax changes, and maybe this is where some of the more of the bad press comes from, because you would have had people that were non-dom in the UK, and we're probably talking more about the kind of the super wealthy people, right, that wouldn't have had to pay inheritance tax on their worldwide estate, right? Whereas actually, potentially now, under the new kind of residency-based rules, you may be someone that has to pay tax, inheritance tax on your worldwide estate. And I think that's probably where you're going to see that exodus of people leaving, right? Because they want to get their worldwide assets out of the scope of UK inheritance tax, because we've touched on some of the bans and stuff like that. And I think probably other countries have more favourable IHT rates and thresholds.
Yeah, 100%.
How would you change the FIG regime if you could?
I'd probably extend it I'd make it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And the inheritance stuff the inheritance tax stuff is tricky. I don't know exactly what I'd do, but I'd find ways. I think the government's got to find ways to stop people leaving the UK just for that sole reason, basically.
Yeah, I mean, with the old scheme as well, to that point, they used to charge, 30 grand fixed fee at year 7. Yeah, so maybe they could have done it up to the same point.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people would have finished at year 7 because of the 30,000 charge.
Yeah.
So then the people who are kind of losing out is a much smaller fraction. Yeah. So I probably would have matched that from a time perspective.
Potentially could also have some sort of a charge, like they do out in Italy, where they have, I think the charge is now increased to almost 200k. So it's a big charge, but you don't pay any tax on your overseas income. And I guess it will only impact the super wealthy individuals and their families, but it's a way of keeping some of those super wealthy in who may have been thinking of leaving.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to our point where we kept talking about investing back into the UK, etc., it'd be very, very interesting to see after this first year how much money has been brought in, like how, and we'll see it from the returns we're going to support people do, right? How many people are bringing that money in? But ideally, this year we would see a lot of non-doms bringing in that income, because they have just 2 years to bring in any
3.
3 years.
You get 2 years at 12%. The final year will be at 15%, so slightly higher, but still overall it's going to be a preferential rate, right?
Hopefully some decent inflows in these years of foreign income, which can get invested into UK businesses.
We'll do a bit of a webinar on this to go into more detail and get some questions, but just a couple of tips for individuals that might be affected by FIG, or non-doms who are now kind of moving into the usual tax regime. Have you got any specific things that people can take away?
I think plan ahead, right? Obviously that's a basic one, but it, as I sort of said at the start, it's live now, so this all kind of kicked off from April. You don't need to file until next year for the first year, but if you are somebody that is looking at bringing funds to the UK, maybe you want to buy a house and you've exempted income from the remittance basis, we can kind of help you with that, but you kind of do need to understand some of the complexities and the rates and stuff like that. So I definitely think that making sure people are aware of like what their tax return is going to look like for next year is kind of key. And any time from now, people should be probably thinking about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you've got that 2-year window at 12%, so it'd be starting to plan if you want to bring some money in. And also, we're talking a lot about the UK, but also wherever the money is now, it could be spread across the world. It could be in different countries, right? So almost understanding the rules of where that money is. Can you make some sales or exits if you've got any assets overseas in a window where you might get a better rate, and then you can bring it in over 3 years, because maybe that's more efficient from the other side. So it's not just looking at UK, you've got to understand where is that foreign income and gain. So a little bit of planning with both countries or multiple countries to then decide what's best to do. Yeah. Nice. And I guess, as you mentioned, the webinar will go over a lot of these tips and topics, and hopefully people will be well informed.
Yeah, 100%. Sign up to the webinar, all details within the email. So please take a look, add your name and email, and we'll see you there.